Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining WasteCap Nebraska for the first in our 2015 webinar series, Building Better Communities. For a complete listing of remaining topics, visit our website, wastecapne.org, and look under Events on our homepage. Our corporate sponsor for the series is Lindsay Corporation, and the series is also partially funded by a grant from the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality. WasteCap Nebraska is a statewide member-based nonprofit organization that works with community and business leaders to build zero-waste communities. We help community leaders identify zero-waste policies, programs, and infrastructure, and provide assistance to business entities for achieving zero-waste goals and developing sustainable business practices. Our goal is to eliminate waste in Nebraska. Today's topic is greener neighborhood cleanups. During the next hour, you will learn about the cleanup efforts of the City of Omaha and Keep Omaha Beautiful and what they've sponsored throughout the city, and how participating organizations can take a step further by providing additional recycling efforts to enhance their cleanups. Our presenter today is Kim Sosala-Bar. Kim has more than 20 years of professional architecture and sustainable design experience and has been with HDR in Omaha for the last 18 years. She is a licensed architect, a LEED accredited professional for building design and construction, a Green Globes professional, and an ISI Envision sustainability professional. Ms. Sosala-Bar's experience is related to building design, facilitating sustainable design efforts and documentation, as well as involvement in HDR's internal sustainability initiatives. As a member of HDR's Office of Sustainability, she is involved in efforts to continually reduce HDR's environmental impact in reducing their carbon footprint. Her contributions were integral in expanding recycling efforts and incorporating composting at HDR's Omaha office. She is a member of the U.S. Green Building Council, Nebraska Flatwater Chapter, and Habitat for Humanity Omaha's Construction Committee and Standards Committee. Before I turn this over to Kim, I want to encourage you to participate in the polls that we posted during the presentation and to ask questions in the chat box. Kim will answer your questions at the end of her presentation, but you should feel free to type them in as they come to mind. A recording of this presentation will be available afterwards, and we encourage you to share it with your friends and colleagues who might benefit from this information. Now, as I turn the presentation over to Kim Sosala-Bar, there will be a slight delay and before her screen comes up. Thank you again for attending.
Okay, can everyone see my screen here with Omaha Spring Cleanup? Are you able to see that, Julie? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Kim, and see your screen.
Super, great. We will get started. This is the presentation about Spring Cleanup. And have a few learning objectives to kind of outline some of the things that I'm going to talk about what is a spring cleanup and who sponsors that and how is that organized, as well as the process, and then some ideas about taking it a step further, other additional things that you can include. So with that, I'll start with what is a spring cleanup? In Omaha, we have an event that is called the Spring Cleanup. It's as Julie said, is sponsored by the City of Omaha as well as Keep Omaha Beautiful. And the purpose is to really have an opportunity to for folks to dispose of some items that they can't dispose of in their curbside collection and that. So, the event and the sites for the event are offered to different organizations in town. They try to keep them within the city limits. They like to look for groups that are within the city limits, as well as groups that are residential-based groups and are citizens and community-type groups. So a lot of these occur within neighborhood organizations that have that are an organized group and are able to help sponsor and support the event. So that's typically how they're organized. And then who sponsors them, as we've said, the City of Omaha does, as well as Keep Omaha Beautiful. And Keep Omaha Beautiful has a lot of information about the locations and the dates of the cleanups that are happening in Omaha. Here's a little information from Keep Omaha Beautiful's website. I thought it's periodically we see them more visibly involved with events around town, but really part of their kind of primary goals are to work with other groups and to encourage and educate other groups and get people talking to each other and just kind of coordinate some efforts. So in that regard, during the neighborhood cleanups and that, Keep Omaha Beautiful as a group isn't a real visible component because it's in lots of different neighborhoods, that sort of thing. But they are certainly integral in the whole program and providing information through their website as well as other resources that they provide. And one interesting bit of information that I found on their website was that they've been in Omaha working for over 50 years, working with the city, working with community groups, working on especially solid waste issues. So I found that to be very interesting. And there's also a national Keep America Beautiful organization that they participate in as well. So right off the bat, our first poll question that I will throw it to you, Julie, for and I think I'm not seeing the poll question yet. There we go. So if folks can see that poll question and want to click their response if they've participated. Great. Great. So we have 40% of the folks that have participated. That's awesome. And some that are learning more about it today. So that's great as well. All right. So with that, we'll continue with some of the information about the process and how things are organized in that. There's a list of the participating neighborhood associations on Keep Omaha Beautiful's website, and there's also information about how you can register your neighborhood association if you were wanting to start have a cleanup site in your neighborhood. And something to remember about that too, you'll notice the sign in the image in this slide. We're in the Harvey Oaks neighborhood, so we have an elementary school in our neighborhood, and our cleanup event occurs in the parking lot of the elementary school. So in order to hold an event there, you need to coordinate with whatever site you would be looking to use. If it's a school, oftentimes I think it's a lot of the public schools parking lots that are available, but if it's a church or any other location, you'd need to definitely coordinate with them so that they know what's happening. And I know from years past, occasionally, if there is sports going on at the school at the same time that day, it can make things a little bit busy. So some coordination there is always nice. And I also note on this slide that there are some items are not allowed for disposal, and these would mostly be, some of these are tires and paint and concrete, those types of things, as well as they typically do not have appliances. They don't want you to bring appliances and that sort of thing to the cleanup event. But typically what they've started now in the city of Omaha is they will have one site each weekend where you can take appliances and those big items, so that it's not available at every cleanup site, because on any weekend there can be several cleanup sites operating. So they'll specify one site in town for appliance disposal if folks are looking for that as well. And some of the items that they don't take, like paints and oil and that sort of thing, we encourage our folks in our neighborhood and that to take those to under the sink. Sometimes folks just need some information about where to take things, we've found, and then they're perfectly willing to do it if they just have the information on what they should be doing. So, and we note a few things on our sign that we are recycling metal now, and about the bikes that are donated, and electronic recycling as well, to give folks a heads up about those opportunities there. So here's kind of what it can look like. Typically the city has contracted with a trash hauler, so they will have, typically they bring 2 trucks at a time that'll be parked in the parking lot, and as those fill or are getting close to full, they'll have new trucks come. So as soon as one truck is full, then the new truck will drive in the lot and park there to be available for folks. And in the beginning, it was, and the city contracts with these, so the city is paying for the trash hauler and kind of coordinating the dates and that. And anything additional to that is up to the group to look at what they would like to do. And I will throw out there that in the beginning, our Harvey Oaks cleanup, our gentleman in our neighborhood that's been key in organizing folks in the neighborhood to volunteer at the event, he's been doing that for about the last 15 years or so. So he has a lot of experience in working at the cleanup. And many years ago, and typically what would happen is we would go through 4 or 5 of these trucks. We would fill 4 or 5 of them in the 5-hour time span of the cleanup from 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock is typically what happens. So then, as we looked at how to take it a step further, we started, this kind of has a little glimpse of a few different additional options there in the parking lot, and that allow people to some different opportunities for those items and that. And I will note we have, in addition to recycling some of these items and donating bikes and that, we do have some folks in the neighborhood that like to volunteer at the cleanup event every year, because it gives them first pick of anyone's discards, and there are some really nice things that folks don't have a need for anymore and aren't sure where to take them to get rid of them. So that's always a bonus for volunteering, is that you, if it's something you can use, by all means, you can take it home with you and use it. So our next poll question is about that for folks that that have participated in an event. If their event also included some recycling or donation type of services. So we'll give everyone a chance to answer, and then we'll get to see the results of that. Great. Oh, great. So there is some, at those that are participating in events, there is some collecting bikes and donating them. That's great. A lot of metal recycling. That's fabulous. And even electronics recycling. That's great. And folks that are collecting things for other charitable donations. That is great, too. And I may ask for folks' comments about that topic when we're at the end of the presentation, because that's something that we're looking to add and are trying to figure out logistics of doing that. So that's great to see. Fabulous. Okay. Okay. So can you see my screen, Julie, with the bike? I want to make sure I'm back. Okay. As far as collecting bikes, I think this was the first piece of our kind of additional recycling efforts and that was added. And as folks, and especially our neighbor that really does a lot of the organizing of this for us, as they noticed how many bikes people were bringing that were either in disrepair or just were outgrown. Oh my goodness, turn that off. That folks didn't know, how to fix them maybe, or that their kids had outgrown them and so they didn't need them anymore, and they were used and they weren't sure where to take them. So we started collecting them, and we work with a group in town called Community Bike Project, and they started in the Gifford Park neighborhood. Okay, here we go. Now you should be able to see my screen. There we go. Now you can see the bikes, hopefully. And this is, in working with Community Bike Project, they come to us. We collect the bikes as they come in and kind of lay them in the grassy area. They come to us a couple times during the collection event to collect them all in a truck and take them to their shop. And they'll stop out at our event 2 or 3 times. They'll fill the back of their truck. And really over the course of the day, we can collect 40, 50, 60 bikes. It's really pretty amazing how many bikes can be collected and reused. We can get to the next slide. There we go. that's just another view of some of the bikes there, collecting those. And then we'll take a look at, I put some info here about Community Bike Project because their involvement is really great, and it's nice for our neighborhood association to be able to support their efforts in that. They have many programs that they use to help educate folks on how to fix bikes that they may already have, how to volunteer in their shop and learn about fixing bikes, and in the process work on a bike in the shop, and after a certain amount of time of doing that, they can earn that bike. And they do maintenance classes to keep folks up to speed on what they should be doing to maintain their bikes and that. And they really offer their programs they have programs for kids all the way through to adults, but it's a great program that really is helps with mentoring as well as just being a great force in the community and helping folks out so that they have access to bikes and transportation. So with that, once we had the bikes, we were kind of pulling those out, then folks started to notice, well, there's still a lot of metal that people are bringing to the cleanups, and especially you'll see in this picture, there's patio table, there's file cabinets. There can really just be lots of various metal items. And so about 5 years ago, we added the metal recycling. And initially, our first year, we had we weren't sure, how much metal we would receive, and so we had a small company that had a big trailer that we filled like immediately, and he took several trips back to his shop to handle all of the metal that was coming in. So then after that first year, we had a bigger dumpster, a bigger bin for things, and so these photos are from last year's event, and you can see a lot of grills that come in that folks don't need anymore, fencing, even gardening type fencing and that. I've pulled tomato cages as well as chicken wire to put around some of my other vegetable beds that people had brought to the cleanup that they didn't need it anymore. So I grabbed that to use it in my garden as well. So that, and then just all of the miscellaneous metal items that it's amazing how it really piles up and how much of a quantity is there for those types of items. And a lot of these, the city asks that if you're adding some of these types of collection services and that you just coordinate with them and touch base with them about that. And they have been helpful, working with us when we had questions about, using a kind of a bigger operation for metal recycling and who we could look to provide that sort of thing. So they've been very helpful and just want to know what's happening with the event and that. And for most of these metal haulers, I think it's typical for them to they provide their services for free. Essentially, they'll bring a bin, a big dumpster, and they're collecting all this metal and taking it. So they essentially get paid with all of the metal donations that they're receiving that day. So this incorporating metal recycling hasn't been a cost to the event at all. It's provided for free. Then about 4 years ago, I was getting more educated about electronics recycling and that, and I went to our cleanup organizer and asked him, you know, how much, you know, electronics or TVs or computers or any of that they would have at the collection events, and what would they do with it. And he said, oh yeah, we have stuff like that that comes in and it just goes in the trash dumpster and gets crushed. And I just shuddered at that thought and thought, oh well, we can do something better to take care of that. So we've had a few different electronics recyclers help us out in the past. And last year we were working with Cross Training Center, and they did our electronics recycling for us, as well as other items that they accept, and one of those being appliances. So it was kind of a nice added plus for the folks coming to our cleanup, that there were a few folks that came last year that were not aware that the city just had one site for appliance drop-off, so they kind of lucked out and were able to take their appliances, still drop off their appliances at our event, because Cross Training Center could handle that for us. So they were set up with a truck. We've had a few different setups of using Gaylords, which is that big cardboard box that you can see in the back of that truck there. We've had some situations where we have those Gaylords sitting in the parking lot and we fill those up, and then they would come and collect those and put them up on a truck. Last year we had them all in the truck. It made it really streamlined in that it was organized that way, which was it was nice. And then there were also donation tickets, essentially folks, you know, donating their electronics to Cross Training Center to use in their training center and help teach individuals about electronics recycling, and that they can get a donation receipt for their taxes and that if they so desire. So that's the table set up there, and the folks from Cross Training Center staffed this part of our cleanup during the entire cleanup and handled everything and worked with folks on that. And you'll notice a sign there in the grass that says electronics recycling fees. There are, and with our different electronics recyclers that we use, this was always the case. There is a fee for some of the items, not all of them, and typically it's monitors, computer monitors, and televisions where the fees come into play because of some hazardous materials that are involved in those products. You know, the old cathode ray tube computer monitors, there's lead in that glass, and there's other, you know, hazardous chemicals in those types of old computer monitors, as well as televisions that were cathode ray tube televisions had similar considerations, and so that's where the fees come into play. But I will say, we let folks know ahead of time there were going to be some fees for some of these items, and people were very responsive. They were very appreciative that they could take things up to the cleanup and electronics and have it disposed of, you know, in a environmentally sound way, and that they were doing the right thing with that. So I don't think it was a hindrance for people, and there were so many items that there was no fee for. VCRs and DVD players and other types of music devices, other types of, you know, keyboards and mice, and just different things related to using a computer and that sort of thing. So that made it nice. And I will toss out there as well that the first year that we initiated electronics recycling was probably the year we had the most items come in, although we've been close to that, but a little under. And last year's event, we were, I think, even a little, a few less items than the year before. And what I have observed with that, as well as a few articles that I've read about similar occurrences, is that initially, the first year when we offered this, folks had things stored in their basements and their closets because they didn't know where to take them and what they should do with them. So they kind of held on to them, thankfully, until they knew how to dispose of them. So that first year, people came and they might have 3 or 4 CRT monitors and 4 VCRs and all kinds of things because they had kept them in their house. So it was nice, and they were appreciative too that now they knew they had a place that they could take them and they knew what to do with it. And here's kind of some things in action here with some computers that an individual is dropping off and getting loaded on the truck. And then in addition to the appliances that Cross Training Center could take, we typically see several lawnmowers come in. And Cross Training Center will look at the lawnmowers and see if they're fixable, see what needs to be fixed. And if they are fixable, they'll fix them and resell them. And if they're not, they'll take them apart for parts and recycle the metal, that sort of thing, which initially the lawnmowers were going to the metal recycling and they were all being recycled until we were, last year when we were working with Cross Training Center, they said, they're able to take those and fix them, and it's a great opportunity for them to do that. So that was great. And I think last year, all total, I think we had 8 or 9 lawnmowers that came in that they were able to take with them and work with. So this brings us to the third poll question. Which, in looking at reducing how much is going to the landfill, it can be very interesting to see how much of a reduction can be expected by including recycling in the event. So. Oh, great. Folks have some very good answers there with the 50 and 75%. Those are very good answers, and I will offer from our experience with including the metal and the electronics and the bikes. Last year we had the 2 trucks in the parking lot, the 2 trash trucks, and we did not fill them. One was full and the other was not quite full, so we were a little under 2 trucks, which, prior to a lot of recycling going on, we were at 4 or 5 trucks. So we can pretty confidently say that, yeah, 50% to really kind of between that 50 to 75, 50, 60% in there definitely can be diverted from the landfill with some really simple recycling included. And I did hint at earlier, we have discussed for our neighborhood cleanup as well, pulling out some items that could be donated to Goodwill or Salvation Army or the Siena Francis House, and that there can be furniture. I've seen bed frames, headboards, couches, chairs, shelving sometimes, and a lot of that has wood in it, which if it's metal, it can can go in the metal bin to be recycled. And we've talked about how to kind of collect those things, or how to organize that so that we make sure that whatever's collected is something that's usable for Salvation Army or Goodwill or any of those types of charities. And we've had some folks that are considering, that have trailers of their own, a few individuals that have landscaping companies and that sort of thing, so they have trailers that they have offered to use to take items someplace. So we're trying to kind of coordinate that and see where that goes going forward. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. And if folks have comments, if folks have done some of that other charitable donation and have comments about what's worked for them, I'd be very interested in those comments as well. So with that, I'll kind of let you facilitate some of the questions, Julie.
Yeah, Kim, thank you so much. That was a great presentation, and I think that we all learned a lot. Good job on your diversion.
Super.
I had one question is all, and I think you answered it after that question was put in about reuse. The question was, what about reuse? Do you have vendors or policies that encourage it? And,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely. And every year we kind of observe what folks are bringing to the cleanup event, so that we can try to keep addressing that. Because certainly, if someone can use an item, and if it needs a little fixing or not, that's very beneficial, as opposed to taking it apart and recycling it. If it's needed out there and someone can use it, we would love to be able to participate in that for sure.
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and Kim can answer those questions. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I was curious, Kim, if you think something like a swap meet would be a useful thing, or would that just add too much confusion to the mix?
We've kind of thought about that, and our site is pretty small. And with the 2 trash trucks that the city brings, and then the metal recycling and the electronics recycling, that's about all we can fit in the parking lot, and leave lanes open for cars to be able to kind of drive through as they drop things off and stuff. But other sites are larger than ours, and we've also thought about some of the grassy area next to the parking lot, how we could utilize some of that, or even there's a section of curb on the street side next to the parking lot that wouldn't inhibit traffic flow if we had a trailer or something parked there that could be used for collecting some other donations. And that it would, and I am curious about kind of a swap kind of event that you could just put things out in the grass. Then you have to consider at the end of the day, or at the end of the time, whatever's left, make sure that someone's able to take that someplace to donate it and stuff. But I think it would be fun. I think there is some concern about traffic flow at our site, because it's a small site, and they want to make sure that people walking and people looking around at things is not crossing with the cars that are coming through. So it certainly could be a condition, I think.
How many volunteers do you need at that event?
We usually, let's see, we usually have around 8 or 10 people that volunteer, and they are helping people take things out of their cars and get it to the right to the right spot as far as, you know, if it's metal recycling, that sort of thing. And they're also keeping up any debris in the parking lot. At the end of the event, we sweep all the area around the trash trucks and anything in the parking lot so that it's not left over when the kids come back to school and that. So yeah, that's primarily our kind of core group of people that volunteer for the event.
Tell us how large the neighborhood is, how many blocks or people, families, or whatever, households?
Sure. Let's see. The neighborhood is about 845 houses. So it may be a little smaller. We have a city park that runs through the middle of the neighborhood. Harvey Oaks Park runs through it. And then the elementary school is about, let's see, 250 to 300 students. So it's a smaller school, and I think it may be the smallest elementary in Millard even.
Kim, if you had one thing you could change about the way you're doing things, what would it be?
I think the thing I would love to change, I would love to figure out how to add making more donations of things and reuse, especially furniture items, and some of those. We have carpet remnants that typically is brand new carpeting that was extra when someone put new carpeting in their house and they don't know where to. So those kinds of things, I would love to put those to better use. And I've thought about myself when I have my minivan up there of just starting to load things in my van to take it somewhere. So I would love to get that incorporated into our event.
I don't see any more questions coming in. Do you have some contact information you'd like to share with people in case they have questions they think of later?
Yes, yes. If everyone can see my email address, they can certainly email me any questions or comments in that. That'd be great.
Kim, thank you again for this wonderful presentation, and I'd like to thank Lindsay Corporation again for being the corporate sponsor and Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality for their grant support of WasteCap. And with that, I think that we'll be ending this webinar early, but thanks again. It was wonderful information for all of us.
Great. Thanks, everyone.